Pursued, slaughtered, and almost completely wiped out because of its fur, the beaver. Very few survived. Now they are reclaiming what they once lost. Their road is full of obstacles, and they are not always welcome. Beavers are fighting for survival, for new territories along the Elbe, the Danube, and the Rhine. Can Europe's biggest rodent once again conquer its ancestral home? It is quiet and secretive, mostly unobtrusive and unseen. In the dark of night, it goes to work, taking what it requires. The scaly tail serves as support. A little higher up, the twigs are more tender. Quick as you can, back into the water. Here, the beaver feels safer and the branches can be transported more easily. Its reputation as logger is justified, but the big rodents are far more than that. The next morning, there is an unusual pattering in the territory. Immediately the beavers react and bring construction material. Their dam has a leak. The water of their pond is running out. But they need the little lake for transportation of food and building materials and as a protective moat around their lodge. These two must repair the damage as quickly as possible. Thicker branches stabilize the structure. Finally, it is all sealed with mud and smaller twigs. The high water level is vital as it protects the whole family. The entrance to the beaver lodge is always below the surface, irrespective of how high it is piled up above the water. The pair lives in a riparian forest along the Biosphere Reserve, Middle Elbe. Here they can live in peace. It wasn't always like this. Back in the Middle Ages, beavers were already targeted for their pelts. After the First World War, they were gone from most of Europe. Only 1,200 remained, scattered in Russia, Norway and France, as well as along the Middle Elbe. A mere 200 beavers had survived, the last of their kind in Germany. Thanks to intensive protection, they have managed to hold on here, even expanding their range. The two dam builders have hungry mouths to feed. They seldom eat their food where they find it. Usually they will transport it to their feeding areas, via the water, of course. Here, the family gathers. Beavers are social animals and develop a close relationship with their offspring. Up to 5 kits can be raised in a single litter. This time the pair has just 2 to take care of. Pairs remain together for life and will share all parenting duties. Around the lodge, the young beavers explore their domain. After about 8 weeks, they are no longer nursed and must learn to find the right leaves and herbs, and to assert themselves. At this age, the youngsters don't stray far from their parents and often come back to them, searching for closeness. From day one, they are excellent swimmers. Usually a family consists of the parents with their latest offspring, as well as the young from the previous year. In this family, however, there was no offspring last year. In their neighborhood, there is just a 2-year-old sibling hanging around. At this age, the young reach sexual maturity and must leave the territory of the parents to find one of their own. This is how beaver numbers are regulated. There is no risk of uncontrolled population explosions as they can happen with rats and mice. Ahead of him lie strenuous and dangerous times. Many of them don't survive the weeks of wandering. Beavers are true landscapers. Where they build their dams, trees get wet feet and many will die. Clearings develop in the forests, and these attract animals that were not there before. Broad-bodied chasers and meadow hawks ensuring the next generation. After mating, the dragonflies release their eggs into the water during a well-timed tandem flight. This action is closely inspected. Luckily for the dragonflies, the hit rate of the frogs isn't very high. They too are on the lookout for potential partners. But not everything that is green and hops is a female. In the dammed-up ponds, other calls can also be heard. European fire-bellied toads. The scarce amphibians love particularly shallow water. These ponds are also ideal for ruds. Here they find food and protection from predators. Indeed, fish are the major profiteers of the beaver's work. In some cases, a single lodge can cause an 80-fold increase in local populations. This abundance lures fish eaters. The hunting heron itself raises the curiosity of another hunter. Eurasian otters share the same habitat with the beaver. They profit from the big rodents in different ways. In the ponds themselves, many fish can be found. And sometimes, otters even take over deserted lodges as hiding places or to rear their offspring. One fate connects the two species. Both were persecuted to near extinction for their pelts. And both survived in secrecy here along the Middle Elbe. In this unique floodplain, the beaver was able to live and reproduce undisturbed. From here, it gradually occupied more and more of its ancestral range. Our young beaver is a great example of how this happens. To avoid conflict with its parents, who no longer accept him in their territory, he begins to wander. Water is his element. On land, progress is much slower. His objective is to reach the main channel of the Elbe. Upriver, all territories are already occupied, so the only option is to head downstream. The young beaver manages to put an impressive distance between himself and his parents in a short period of time. He scans the riverbanks for signs of his peers. A burrow piques his interest. A good hiding place in case of danger. Instinctively, the young Noah grooms its fur. This is very important for maintaining its body temperature. Beavers only seldom stray far from the river to be able to flee at short notice. In addition, they excavate up to 20-meter escape tunnels that are often easily overlooked. But something is bothering him in this unfamiliar area. Right around the corner, he seems more at ease. Finally, he has the peace to complete tending to his fur. His thick pelt must be completely impregnated and waterproofed. For this, he uses oil from a gland on his abdomen. Only then does he allow himself a rest. The Biosphere Reserve stretches for over 300 kilometers along the Middle Elbe. Young adults that wander outside this reserve face a variety of dangers. Searching for water, they will often walk along embankments and ditches. They need to cross roads regularly. In some areas, up to 60% of deaths are caused by vehicle traffic. In this simulated scene, everything turned out well. Despite all the dangers, within a century, the last 200 beavers have increased to over 10,000 in East Germany alone. Along the Elbe and its tributaries, they have also ventured a long way to the west. While they were spared and protected at the Elbe, they were completely wiped out in southern Germany throughout the Danube river basin. In Bavaria, the last beaver was shot for its fur in 1867. In the Middle Ages, beavers were also in demand as food for monks during Lent. Due to their scaly tails, they were declared a fish by the Catholic Church. Throughout the area, names bear witness to the beaver's former presence. The town of Biberach, for example. Flat roof tiles have been called beaver tails for ages, and in many areas, boundary markers tell ancient tales. In the 1960s, a plan to release Russian beavers along the Danube was developed. As along the Elbe, a few had also survived in the Soviet Union. In the Voronezh Nature Reserve, south of Moscow, experts had put in a lot of effort to protect the beaver. Under the leadership of Leonid Lavrov, first offspring were bred in 1934. Within 50 years, engaged helpers had carefully reared 1,300 beavers to adulthood. The aim was to reintroduce them into the wild. In this way, the first of these Russian rodents were released along the Danube near the town of Neustadt in 1966. International cooperation spanning both sides of the Iron Curtain during the Cold War. The immigrants first populated the Danube floodplains, where they adapted to local conditions quickly. Their descendants, now also carrying genes of reintroduced animals from France and Norway, are gradually exploring their surrounding regions. These siblings are 2 months old. Solid wood is nothing for their as yet not fully developed teeth. Like the adults in summer, they prefer the softer perennials. Even if the stinging nettle is defending itself. The third of the siblings demands a share of the spoils. Generation by generation, the settled beavers occupied more and more of the tributaries of the Danube. But the landscape has changed. Where once floodplains dominated, there are now agricultural breadbaskets. The fields press ever closer to the riverbanks. Yet even here, beavers have managed to establish themselves. The burrow is hard to distinguish from the surroundings. To keep the entrance secret, the beaver slips away unobtrusively. The partner is already waiting at their feeding area. As usual, the animals greet each other tenderly. They regularly use the same exits, the clearly visible beaver slides. When checking for safety, they rely heavily on their noses. Beavers don't see very well. Only reluctantly do the clumsy walkers stray further than 20 meters from the water. But there are exceptions. The smell of wheat is too appealing. The expert harvest reveals that this is routine. The thieves are not at work for the first time. Cinematic documentation, however, is a first. Their young learn quickly that there is something worth getting. Already at 3 weeks, they mainly feed on plants. The animals have adapted to their changed surroundings and make the most of it. For the farmers, on the other hand, their incursions are more than annoying. A hungry beaver family will consume hundreds of kilograms in a single summer. For the rodents, however, there are no alternatives if the fields encroach the banks so closely. To avoid this conflict, wider natural river margins would have to remain. Beavers are happy living off meadowsweet, valerian and even stinging nettles. A young one dives out of the den. Its return to the surface does not go unnoticed. The experienced adult knows the danger. The flat tail is a powerful weapon. The dog just manages to dodge the sharp teeth. Often such encounters have a deadly end for the dogs. The frightened young beaver seeks comfort from its savior. "20,000 beavers now once again call Bavaria home, but not everyone is happy about this. Because beavers are mainly nocturnal, their tracks appear as surprisingly as the famous crop circles. Most damage occurs within 20 meters of the riverbank. If the margins don't provide enough shelter and food, the beavers are forced to enter even more distant crop fields. They reclaim what was once destroyed by man and create their own floodplain. Undercut roads and flooded fields are the consequence. If the problem gets out of hand, it's time for the beaver consultant. He informs and looks for solutions. In some specific cases, the problem animals, usually young wanderers, must be removed. They often take up residence in less than ideal locations because the best territories are all occupied. This one is lucky. It will be relocated to the United Kingdom to boost the biodiversity there. In Bavaria, around 1,400 beavers are caught annually. Autumn along the Elbe. The days get shorter and the animals prepare for the cold time of the year. Migrants like grey-lag geese fly to their winter ranges. The beavers remain, but don't hibernate. Provisions need to be made. Only now do they become woodcutters, switching their diet largely to bark because this is available in the winter months. No other animal produces the typical hourglass-shaped cutting which the beaver is famous for. The young artist rarely shows himself. During the day, he is usually hiding in his still scanty lodge. Nearby floats a food raft, a larder of branches for the winter. Along territorial boundaries, the beaver scratches together small piles of mud, marking them with castoreum. The secretion is stored in two glands known as castor sacs. In addition to their thick fur, these glands caused the beaver's downfall. In the Middle Ages, they were worth their weight in gold. Castoreum was considered a wonder drug against fever and pain, rheumatism and gout. Actually, it contains the active agent salicylic acid, a natural painkiller, which the beaver ingests with willow bark, its favorite food. Throughout the region, beavers are now collecting food supplies. Along the Danube, a particularly diligent forester has felled a number of trees towards the river. In this way, it can comfortably reach the bark of the branches and twigs. A beaver chops down up to 3 cubic meters of wood per year. Most of these are economically irrelevant softwoods like alder, poplar or willow, but they do also manage to fell oak and spruce. Winter, the long period of hardship, begins. The beaver must be well prepared. Along the banks, it tries to fell as many trees as possible, enabling easy access whenever this becomes necessary. In addition, it has managed to build up a good layer of fat during autumn for the lean months ahead. On particularly cold days, the beavers retreat into the innermost parts of their lodge, where the chamber is well insulated. Like here, in an artificial den where the animals spend the winter. Finally, the pair has enough time to tend to their coats. At 23,000 hairs per square centimeter, their fur is denser than almost all others. As recently as 200 years ago, this rodent was considered the king of the fur animals. At the start of the 1900s, 500,000 beaver pelts were sold in London alone. The beavers are now feeding from the food raft. On a daily basis, they devour around 3 kilograms of bark. Grooming is reciprocated by the pair. Otherwise, the name of the game is being lazy and saving energy. It has become calm around the lodge. Others also need to manage available resources carefully. The pair has already mated. The female is pregnant. Beavers regularly leave their lodge, even in winter. With their 25-kilo bodies, they easily open holes in the ice sheet, as long as they don't wait too long. In this way, they keep the path to the lodge open. Failing this, they would not be able to get out to eat and couldn't get back in when detecting danger. Most winters in Central European latitudes are not dangerous for beavers. Hardly any water bodies freeze to the bottom anymore. The last time the Danube was fully covered by ice was in 1985. Temperatures below -20 degrees Celsius are almost unheard of. For the beavers, mild winters are ideal, and even this one is now coming to an end. Now the beavers once again head outside more regularly, hungry for the first greens. Especially the pregnant female requires energy-rich nourishment. The male is on the lookout. Camouflaged as driftwood, it is almost invisible. Perfectly adapted to its habitat, the ears, eyes and nose are all positioned to be just above the water level. In spring, the floodplains offer a great selection, nutritious buds and fresh herbage. While the beavers wait for their offspring, penduline tits and great crested grebes are still preparing the next generation. The male penduline tit weaves an artistic nest with willow fibers. It must be the best looking nest to attract a female. Because females are very selective, the male will often build numerous nests. The beaver pair lives just below the confluence of Brigach and Breg, where the Danube gets its name. These streams originate in the southern Black Forest. From here, the animals gradually wander upstream and conquer the higher elevations. The narrower the streams become, the more likely the beavers are to dam them up to increase the water level. In this way, they transform the landscape into a diverse wilderness. The beavers face many challenges in the Black Forest region. They can't burrow their tunnels into rocks, and plants grow more sparsely here. Nevertheless, the watery central German uplands seem to be ideal for beavers. At some lakes, however, they face a problem that even these specialists of adaptation can't overcome. For this young beaver, the trip has come to an end. For days he has been fighting for his life. He has fallen into the overflow basin. Without help, it will be impossible to escape. The managers of the barrage increase the water level to save the animal's life. But the torrential flood makes it even tougher for the helpless beaver. By diving, he tries to escape. But even this great effort can't save him. His strength wanes. When the torrent ebbs away after 15 minutes, the water level has increased by 2 meters. It takes a while until the prisoner understands the new situation. At first, fear still dominates. After a few days of captivity, the beaver is finally free. Stories like these don't always end on a happy note. The young beaver couldn't overcome the huge obstacle and returns to the valley. Here, however, he needs to pass through a number of occupied territories. Until now, the lake owners have not noticed him and he can satisfy his hunger. Due to the nutritious algae, he will soon regain his strength to continue the journey. It will be tough to find a good location. Many rivers are already too densely populated for the young wanderers to find a new home. Within the last 50 years, the numbers in Bavaria and Baden-Württemberg have swollen from the 120 released beavers to over 25,000 animals. Virtually all of southern Germany is once again populated. What's still missing are the Alps and the Rhine. The story of the beaver's return to the Rhine begins in the south of France. 100 years ago, just 30 animals had survived along the Rhone. As with the Elbe beavers, these survivors were the start of a population that has now reached 12,000 animals. In this lodge, 4 young were born 3 weeks ago. At birth, they weighed around a pound, but they gain weight quickly. Beaver milk is fatty and very nutritious. Already they eat leaves and herbs. The transition to a vegetarian diet is critical. The youngsters still lack the intestinal bacteria that make the nutrition accessible. For this, they ingest the excreta of their mother. The return of the beaver is taking shape in such secrecy that almost no one associates them with the south of France. The typical bulls and pale horses of the Camargue, on the other hand, are well known. Flamingos too characterize the landscape. They are perfectly adapted to the brackish water at the Rhone estuary. Higher up the river, it becomes tricky for the beaver family when snowmelt and heavy rainfall come together. The youngsters can't dive yet. They would be swept away immediately. The mother remains with her offspring, though she can do no more than wait. Young beavers grow quickly, for good reason. This makes them more resilient for a life in water. Young beavers are driving the expansion along the Rhone. Through reintroductions, beavers from France ended up in Switzerland, the Alsace, and in southern Germany, and are already occupying free territories along the Rhine. In southwest Germany, 3 subspecies are currently colliding. The Rhone beaver from France, the reintroduced Russian-Norwegian beavers from the Danube, while the Elbe River beavers reach the Rhine from the north. Nature itself sometimes puts obstacles in the path of the wanderers. The beavers somehow mastered the Rhine Falls at Schaffhausen. How exactly they did this remains their secret. Due to young ones covering up to 200 kilometers in their search, the large rodents are likely to reoccupy the Rhine, bit by bit. Here at least, pockets of floodplain remain that were once home to the beaver. They need not fear competition from their own kind. But strangers from South America have discovered the area for themselves. Fur trappers introduced them to Germany in 1926. The white snout and round tail distinguish them from the beaver. Nutrias live in extended families and get litters of 6 to 8 young, up to 3 times a year. They have it easy and spread out quickly. Although nutrias are often quite rough with conspecifics, competition between them and beavers is as yet unknown. Along the Rhine, the same story unfolds as at the Rhone, the Danube and the Elbe. Young animals search for a territory and a suitable mate. If two meet, it becomes exciting. Will they get along? Evidently, these two were looking for each other, with success. Together, they will establish a new territory here. They are likely to stay together for their whole lives. Their descendants, however, will gradually spread out downstream along the Rhine, recolonizing it as they go. This beaver conquest will not hold back from our cultural landscapes. Elsewhere, they have already proved their flexibility and that they are able to adapt to different challenges. The Elbe has long since been made the beaver's own river. But even here, life is not becoming easier. The summers keep getting hotter. Many oxbow lakes and pools are drying out, and lodges must be abandoned. Beavers must wander off. Some die. Climate change becomes an existential threat. This family with its offspring was lucky. The groundwater level in this swamp forest was high enough. Their young will begin their wandering in 2 years, as beavers have done for countless generations. In this way, they have retaken what was taken from them. More than 35,000 beavers live in Germany today. Throughout Europe, there are now over 500,000. Arisen from a founder population of just 1,200 animals.